Welcome back, Grief Nation listeners. And today on Grief Talk, I'm going to talk to JaJuan McDowell. And our segment for today is called Remarkable Woman. Hello, JaJuan. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Beautiful. I'm well. I'm well.
I'm good. It's always a pleasure to be in space with you or just to share time with you. I really, truly appreciate your acceptance for coming on. It's the Miami Night Show Grief Talk. But let's jump into how did we get here? I met JaJuan through working with Moms Demand Action, and she's just been this light. And I've always wanted to do something with her and work with her. So I asked her to come on the show. You're going to learn so much about what she does, and I'm just grateful for you coming on and sharing your story with us. So talk about your journey of grief and how you got here.
Okay, so my grief journey began April the 7th, 2016. I received a call that no parent should ever be on the other receiving end of. I was 4 hours away. We had allowed our children to go visit family in Savannah for spring break. And this was the day before they were set to return home. And I got this call after I spoke to my son 4 hours prior. I talked to him, he told me about his day, what he had planned for the day. We laughed a little bit. And before we hung up, like our typical conversation is, it ends with "I love you." So I said, "I love you, bud," and he said, "I love you too, mom," because I call him my little rosebud. Because everywhere I am, he's there. He's right behind me in tow. And so when we hung up the phone, I received a call 4 hours later stating that my son had been shot. And I thought, no, I just talked to my baby. How does this happen? Like, how do we get here? In my mind, I'm thinking all kind of thoughts, but my heart is shattered like immediately from hearing that he had been shot. And I'm 4 hours away, so my husband had just gotten in from work, and I couldn't even form complete sentences. And I just remember saying, "We got to go." And he kept saying, "What's wrong?" I said, "We have to go." And we got in the car with just the clothes on our backs, driving 4 hours, which seemed like it took forever. So it seemed like the closer we got, it seemed like the farther we were. We're breaking every law there is, speeding, trying to get there. And we did get pulled over when we got closer. And I remember my husband getting out the car and just telling the officer that our son had been shot. Um, and before then, we were driving, but I felt this cool breeze, like within 15 minutes of that ride, because we received that call at 4:30. So
Mm-hmm.
about 4:47, to be exact, I felt this cool breeze, and I said to myself, "No, no." When I remember looking out the window, and I said, "No, no." My husband said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "No, no." And I couldn't tell him what I was feeling in that moment because I
Yeah.
knew we had to get there. And I kept saying in my mind, like, "I know my son is not just passing me by." And I said, "No, no." And we're praying and unable to brace for the worst. And so when we arrived, I'm calling everyone, no one's answering. I kept telling my husband, "You're not telling us everything." When we arrived to the hospital, the atmosphere, like I could tell because everyone was outside. So I knew that everyone being outside wasn't a good thing that I was about to be told, because I felt like, why isn't anyone in the hospital with my baby? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why is everyone outside? And so we did, I don't even know if we put the car in park. I just remember jumping out the car, and I'm racing towards the door, and one of my family members, and I believe it was my oldest son, that grabbed me. And I remember hearing those words, those dreadful words, and it was, "He didn't make it." And I just lost it. Like, all my being just felt like it left my body. There
Mm-hmm.
was no type of rational thinking. I couldn't think straight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I began to just start that grieving process immediately. It's like you don't prepare for it. It's
Yeah.
nothing that you can take steps to get to that point. And I'm still processing to this day. It'll be 4 years, April the 7th, and I'm still processing it. And during the investigation, we found out that my son, JaJuan, who was 14 years old at the time, was shot and killed by another teen playing with an unsecured firearm. Um, and that other teen was like a relative. It was like a cousin. It was my brother's stepson. And so, or my brother's bonus child, because I don't
Yeah.
like to use the word step. So my brother's bonus son. And
Mhm.
at the time, it was like I couldn't process that, because I was thinking like, how is a gun unsecured? And I started researching, of course, shortly after, not immediately, because I'm still trying to process it. My heart is one place, broken and shattered in a million pieces, and my mind is
Right.
on a total different wavelength, and
Mhm.
they're not connecting. There was
Mhm.
no connection at all. I was torn, um, broken, and still trying to make sense of what was happening,
Right.
not really fully understanding it and not being able to actually put it into terms at the time, because it was so much about this accidental. And so I didn't really identify as a gun violence survivor at first because I felt that it didn't fit the category
Yeah.
of what society calls gun violence,
Mm.
where
Mhm.
um this and it's no such thing as a wrong place, wrong time type thing, but I didn't know if I fit any of the categories that they had labeled as gun violence survivors. And during this grief journey, I realized one day that I was,
Mhm.
that it was not accidental, it was unintentional,
Mhm.
and that the most part it was 100% preventable.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's how I began to gain access to being able to actually process. And I'm still processing, like I said. Um, every day is a journey.
Yeah.
Um, and we take different steps to get to a place where we're able to manage our grief. You
Yeah.
know, it's never easy,
Mhm.
and it doesn't get easier with time. It definitely doesn't get easier with time.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm so sorry about your son. I know that had to be a very, very difficult time, and like you said, we're still processing, we're still going through, but I'm so grateful that you are able to share to help in the cause of teaching us and, what are the right words to use and teaching us, what are the right things to say, like you said, not knowing where you fit in the gun violence, um, acronyms of what gun violence truly is, not knowing that, and a lot of people don't know, and a lot of people don't know, like you said, that they are a survivor because there was so much guilt and everything surrounded by my son's loss because of suicide, so I definitely identify with what you're saying. But
Mhm.
can you tell us a little bit about your son, JaJuan, and what he was like?
Jawan was this kid that loved life. He loved animals, which he didn't get that from me, because I am terrified of every species there is.
Yeah.
Um, but he loved animals. He loved nature. He loved being outside. That like a typical little teen boy.
Mhm.
Being outside was his thing. Collecting bugs and playing
Mhm.
with lizards and all of those things. And so, but he was sweet. He was almost as if when we get in the car, he would always give me a kiss on the cheek and then he'll hug me from the back because he's in the back seat. And
Yeah.
even at 14, he would always get in the back seat. And I always say, Bud, you can get in the front. He said, No, Mom, I like it back here because I'm gonna always have your back. And so
Oh.
he was always just loving fun kid. He was a jokester. He loved to joke. He would, I scare easily, so he would actually try to scare me every chance that he got. It was like that was his thing. Just like, oh, I'm gonna scare my
Uh-huh.
mom today. I'm just going because I know if I just peek around the corner, she's gonna be scared. And so
Oh.
that was how he was.
Mhm.
He was giving.
Yeah.
Um, very giving. He liked to share. He was never a stingy child at all. And
Mhm.
I was always saying like, I'm trying to figure out where he get that from. But he was so selfless. Like he
Mhm.
would give the shirt off his back. That's just how giving he was. And I recall a time where he had got some shoes. We had purchased him some shoes, and I saw him with his flip flops in his backpack, and then he has his shoes on. And it didn't dawn on me to ask, because I'm like, okay, these kids they like to change into their flip flops or they slide. So I'm like, okay, that's probably what he's going to do at gym class or something. I don't know.
Mhm.
And when he came home, he only had his slides and he didn't have his shoes. And I asked him, I said, "Boy, where's your shoes?" And he said, Mom, remember that talk we had about giving and how giving is, gratitude? And I said, yes. I said, but what are you trying to tell me? So he said,
Yeah.
well, there was this little kid that was being picked on, and I gave him my shoes.
Oh
And
my God.
I said, okay. He said, so you're not going to get mad, right? Because we talked about this before. I said, no, I'm not going to get mad. I
Oh,
said, but I would
that's
have preferred that you asked me first, but I understand. It was in the
oh,
moment. And that was the
absolutely.
type of kid that he was. Even at just, 14 years old, he just had this, and my grandmother will always say that he had an old spirit, and
Mm.
I didn't understand that at first.
Yeah.
But she would always say he had this old spirit. And even at times, my grandmother suffered from Alzheimer's. She's passed away now, but um, there was a time where JaJuan, she would only eat from JaJuan. Like he could feed her. Everybody else, she didn't take to them.
Mm.
And I knew that there was a connection. And when she passed, he had a real hard time with that. And so my grief journey began there too, I can say,
Yeah.
by the loss of my grandmother from Alzheimer's. So I think it's a combination of a lot of things that we go through
Mhm.
when we go through life in general,
Yeah.
and we don't even realize it at times.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Oh,
yeah.
wow. So how did you begin the process, after losing Juwan? What I know you stated some of the things, but, you said you started researching. So then what led you into this remarkable woman state? How did you
Okay.
get there?
So how did I get there? Yeah. So good question. Um, I started researching because I wanted to know just how common this was,
Mm.
because I've never experienced anything like this. So I started researching, and I wanted to know like unintentional shootings. And I came across it's a Every Town Survivor Network, and they have an interactive map. And on this interactive map, they have these little dots, and each dot represents a unintentional shooting across the U.S. The
Mhm.
red is the killing, and the pink is the injured. And so it's done, and it's interactive by year. So you can click on the year. And upon doing that, I clicked on my own story.
Mm.
And I said, wow. Then I clicked on a story that was close to mine within the
Mhm.
same region.
Wow.
And I started clicking all these dots, and I was reading everyone's story. And that was the moment that was a eye opener for me, that this is becoming too common for comfort.
Mhm.
And I started saying, okay, it's something that I need to do. And I started researching, gun violence prevention organizations. And I came across Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I reached out to Lucy Macbeth. I inboxed her because her son Jordan was killed in Florida. And I
Mhm.
reached out to her, and she gave me the information that I needed, which in turn, I was able to connect to another survivor, Stephanie Stone.
Mhm.
Um, and from there, the journey began, for me getting involved with Moms Demand Action, the Everytown Survivor Network, and the Be Smart campaign. All of that kind of came in together. I know a lot of people say, don't question God, but how can you get your answers if you don't
Right.
question Him?
Mhm.
And I was sitting at home, and I had a life coach, and she told me, she said, you can't get even with evil, because I was just so angry. I was so
Mhm.
angry about a lot of things, and it was still processing a lot all at
Mm.
one time. And I remember asking God, I said, why my son? And I remember his response being, would you have preferred it to be someone else's son? And without a doubt,
Wow.
hesitation, of thought, I said, no, I
Mhm.
don't want anyone to experience this pain.
Mhm.
And he said, there's your answer. I knew then that he was saying, you got work to do.
Mhm.
Here is the platform that I'm giving you. Here is what I'm going to lay out for you. And then I remember the story about the blind man and John. And I remember they asking, because I felt like I was being punished. It always
Mhm.
feels like you being punished for something. And I
Yeah.
was feeling like I was being punished. I felt like, okay, God, what did I do wrong to deserve this?
Yeah.
And he led me to this story where they asked, did he sin or his parents sin? And he said, no, neither the man nor his parents sinned. This was for my glory, so
Mm.
that I can be elevated in my knowledge. And so I
Yes.
knew at that moment that God was with me on this journey, and he was going to prepare everything in place for me. And to get back to more of the research, I started advocating for the Be Smart program, because you have the Be Smart shirt on, which is
Yeah.
very, yes, the Be Smart program, which is, it's a Be Smart campaign, which is 5 simple steps that both gun owners and non-gun owners can take to ensure the well-being and safety of our children. And if you like, I can share that
Yes.
with you
Please
also.
share. Please
Okay.
share.
So with the Be Smart program, what it does, or the campaign, it's the S, it's an acronym for the SMART. The S is secure all guns in your homes and your vehicles, making sure that your guns are inaccessible to children. We all know that children are curious,
Yeah.
and they stumble across things all the time. We all
Hmm.
have been kids before. We found Christmas gifts in the closet. We found things too in our parents' home, even playing hide and go seek in the house. We
Hmm.
found and stumbled across things. And as simple as stumbling across a gift, you can stumble across an unsecured firearm. And
Hmm.
so the harsh reality of that is making sure that you have your gun inaccessible. Make sure it's secure. Make sure the ammunition is separate from the gun. So if your child does find it, they won't be so curious to pick it up. Because even
Right.
as parents will say, oh, well, my child knows better. But you just never know at that moment when it presents itself, when your child will take that opportunity
Right.
to touch that gun or play with that gun. The M is model responsible behavior around guns, making sure that you're not showing an aggressive behavior around guns, because again, kids are like sponges too. They soak up things. So
Right.
they're around you, they see what you're doing, they see how you interact with your gun. And so they're looking, they're
Hmm.
watching you, even when you
Hmm.
think that they're not. So even being aware that celebratory gunfire kills too. A lot of people go outside and they shoot guns on the 4th of July or on holidays. And what you have to realize, or what others have to realize, is that bullet has to come down somewhere.
Right.
They don't have eyes, they don't have brains, they don't have names. And
Hmm.
we know that celebratory gunfire does kill too. In addition to that, making sure you're not cleaning a loaded gun with your children in the room or being present, because a lot of incidents have occurred that way also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and another part of that is the A, that's ask. Ask others about unsecured guns in their homes, making sure you're having that conversation, because asking can save lives. Even if you have to do it via text or
Hmm.
email,
Hmm.
because I know you may feel kind of funny at first, but I'd rather for you to feel funny and save a life
Yeah.
than for you to experience what I'm experiencing now,
Right.
the loss of your child. And so it's important that you ask. Right now, during this coronavirus that's going around and going on right now, a lot of kids are unsupervised,
Hmm.
because parents are essential workers. And making sure, if you're having someone babysit your child, or your child is going to someone else's home, making sure that you ask. Ask, do they have guns in their homes and how they're secured? The R is something that I know that you identify with, is recognize the role that guns have in suicide. Um, because kids kids are impulsive,
Yeah.
and one bad day can be a fatal day, because we don't, as adults, we don't think all the way chronologically A through Z, and children
Yeah.
don't either.
Hmm.
And the pressure and everything that's around them, one bad day can be a fatal day with the presence of a gun. So making sure, if they're having those days and you can identify those days, or you recognize those days, and you have a gun, get it out the house.
Yeah.
Make sure you secure it, or have it removed, during the time that your child is struggling.
Yeah.
And then the T is what I'm doing now. Have that talk and tell others to be smart. It's very imperative, and it can save lives.
Thank you so much for that. I coming across this Be Smart program and knowing what we know now, being educated on, um, I was like, when I think about it, sometimes I was like, I never even thought about that, bringing my children up. I have children that are 30, 20, 28, 27.
Hmm.
I never thought about having those conversations, never thought about it when they would go visit, other family members, just didn't know, because the education wasn't out there then, I guess, or it wasn't widely talked about like it is now. But thank you so much for sharing that. Can you tell us, during this time and even now, what did your support system look like?
My support system, basically my family and my faith.
Mhm.
Um, they really helped me during this time. I often tell people, during the time I couldn't pray for myself because I couldn't even remember to pray, to be
Yeah.
honest with you,
Yeah.
because my mind was all over the place.
Mhm.
And I knew that there was others interceding on my behalf. Um, and my faith and my hope that things would eventually one day change. We'll see a time where we won't have gun violence will be, see a term that I can use. I don't know if it will be fully eradicated, but that's our prayer is that it
Yeah.
will be.
Mhm.
But at least slow down to where we're preventing things that are preventable. You
Right.
know, passing common sense gun laws. You know, making sure that there are background checks on every gun sale. But my faith and my family has really been instrumental during this process. Um, I had a life coach who is the breakthrough strategist that actually helped me during this journey also. I remember her telling me to write a letter to God and be uncut because he had already knew my feelings.
Yeah.
And she told me to write everything that I was feeling down. She said, write it down. She said, I want you to read it out loud. Then I want you to just take a deep breath and just throw it away.
Mhm.
And I did that, and I had a sigh of relief. It's almost like your soul breathes when you're able to have that exhale from the inside where you feel like, okay, guide me,
Yeah.
I'm here, guide me,
Mhm.
because it's never easy on this journey. It doesn't get easier. I know a lot of people use that term that time heals all wounds, but
Mhm.
time doesn't heal all wounds. Time with Jesus, helps you,
Yeah.
with your wounds, but it doesn't heal all wounds.
Mhm.
But definitely my faith, my family, and just being able to advocate has been very instrumental.
Yeah.
Being able to help others where I see that they reach out and say, hey, I read your story. Now I'm asking, and I'm just like, yes, my son's death will not be in vain because of the work that I continue to do and the advocating that I do. So definitely faith and family
Yeah.
has been very instrumental.
And because we are going through this time of grievance, and a lot of people don't even realize that they're going through it because of us being socially isolated and being disconnected and all of these things that are happening because of the pandemic that we're in. If you had to speak, because here it is, life is still going on around us. Like you said, there's children home at home now. They could be getting into things. We have. I just heard recently that a lot of parents are struggling with their teens not listening, still going out, still doing. If you had to speak to a person that is going through not necessarily lost by gun violence, just lost within itself. Some people have lost their jobs. At this point, what would you say to a person that could have lost a child, but could just have lost within itself? What do you have to say to our people about that?
Just we all have lost our normalcy right now. Let's
Right.
just be honest. And I would just tell them to remain hopeful. I know that right now, looking at it from the natural, we can't see that.
Hmm.
Um, because there's so much that goes on. And we look at it every day on the media,
Yeah.
with, the cases that, continue to rise. And it's just like, okay, what can we do? And so I would just say to that parent, remain hopeful, but also be present. It's very important to be present both physically, mentally, and spiritually, especially when it comes to connecting to your children. Um, be present. Um, talk to them. Share with them the dangers of everything that's going on around them.
Hmm.
Um, Making sure you're being honest with them. Because trust me, if you're trying to tiptoe around it, they probably already have researched themselves or
Hmm.
see things themselves.
Hmm.
And so there is a part of younger people that feel invincible. But you have to let them know that they're not invincible. This can happen to anyone. Um, and just like not just the coronavirus, but gun violence too.
Hmm.
It does not have a particular age,
Right.
race. gender, none of
Mm.
that,
Mhm.
and just like the coronavirus, it does not have an age or gender
Yeah.
or anything of that nature. And so it can happen to anyone. And I would just say be present, remain hopeful, but be honest with your kids as well.
Thank you for sharing that. Because that you've had these experiences with gun violence and you've read stories and you know of others that have gone through this, can you share some of the triggered experiences that you yourself or others may have had that you can share just to let people know, you know, some of these things can happen?
Oh, yes, exactly. I think that I don't like to use, and I've always said it, I don't like to use the word triggers,
Okay.
only because I feel like a lot of people who have been survivors or gun violence
Hmm.
survivors, certain words kind of make them feel or make get them upset. So I like to use an awareness.
Okay.
Even with anxiety, it brings on an awareness of your body.
Hmm.
It tells you something. Either
Hmm.
you become where your breathing is kind of shallow, or your breathing is heavy, and
Hmm.
so it's an awareness. You
Yeah.
know that okay, something is happening.
Hmm.
And it's happening for a reason. So I have to tap into what that reason is. And
Hmm.
so even as with grief awareness, it's being aware of those emotions, but being able to receive those emotions,
Hmm.
being able to say, okay, if this upsets me and I see that this is upsetting me, what can I do to get through this?
Hmm.
Because you can't jump over it. You can't jump.
Right.
You can't jump around it.
Hmm.
You have to go through it. And
Right.
so to get to the other side, because
Hmm.
there is something on the other side, you just have to get there.
Hmm.
The journey is not going to be easy to get there, but you have to tap into within your soul to get
Hmm.
there. Tap into that inner being that's within you to fight through these emotions and everything that you're going through or you're experiencing. Um, I would say that the awareness, like for me, is back to school. Like
Hmm.
when it's come a time for back to school, I either jump up thinking I have to get my child ready for school, and that's an awareness for me. Or when I see all the school supplies in the store, and
Hmm.
it's just like, okay, should I just vacate my cart and just leave what I intentionally came in here for because it's so much that's coming at me at one
Yeah.
time? Or do you fight through it and say, okay, even with the tears, I'm going to push through. And so it's a step and it's a process. And sometimes you have to stay on that step for a long, long time, and it's okay. It's
Hmm.
okay, and you have to give yourself permission to say, okay, it's okay. I'm on this step right now, but eventually I can step up to the next step. But right now, this is where I am,
Hmm.
and being okay with where you are. I think that for the most part, that awareness is being able to identify it. Because if you
Hmm.
try to hide it and conceal it, you can't heal what you conceal.
Right.
You can only heal what you allow and give yourself permission to do. And
Hmm.
so if it's forgiveness, if it's something else, you can give yourself permission. And sometimes you have to stay there. Like this year, I never decorated for Christmas, didn't put up a tree, refused, all of that. And so this year, I actually wanted to decorate. It
Mm.
was something that came over me where I wanted to. And so I was able to tap into that and say, this is something that I want to do. I want to experience this again.
Yeah.
And it's about that awareness again, where okay, if it's too much, then I'm going to kind of ease back down a little bit, but eventually I get up to it. Even if it's just doing one thing at a time. Maybe you put up the tree, but you don't put any decorations on it.
Right.
Or maybe you go out to dinner, but you tell everyone ahead of time, hey, this is what our conversation is going to be about.
Hmm.
But being able to make those boundaries and set those boundaries ahead of time is very beneficial on this journey.
Yeah.
Um, Even if it's a conversation that you're having at dinner, and a lot of people talk about their children in the present tense, and then you have to start your conversation with I remember when.
Mm.
But being okay with that,
Yeah.
but don't feel like, okay, I can't talk about my child. I can no longer talk about my child. No, I'm going to still talk about my child, you
Absolutely.
know, and I'm going to talk about him as it may not be the same as the experience of him being here, but he's here spiritually. He's not here
Hmm.
physically, but he's here
Right.
spiritually.
Right.
And I'm going to continue to talk about him, you
Yeah.
know, and so being aware is very important.
Thank you. And can you share with us the different types of gun violence so that people can, come to a better understanding of what they are?
Sure. So you have what suicides are gun violence, unintentional shootings are gun violence. And I know a lot of people say accident, but it's not an accident. It's 100% preventable again. Um, then you have uh, what is referenced as just violence in general. You have mass shootings, you
Hmm.
have school shootings. And so there's an array of just gun violence that targets or that is in the communities. And so um, I don't like to use urban gun violence because that's like putting it on just
Right.
a certain people, but there's city gun violence
Hmm.
where gun violence touches every city.
Yeah.
Instead of saying urban, just use it
Hmm.
as city gun violence because it's there. And being able to find preventable measures,
Hmm.
that's going to be important on this journey. Being able to learn the laws,
Hmm.
because if you learn a lot, because like I said, I didn't even know different laws that didn't exist until I became a gun violence survivor, and I really wanted to know. And so I started looking at that, like,
Hmm.
and really understanding, like, okay, this is this is a lot bigger than what I thought,
Yeah.
from my own experience of seeing things and growing up and hearing about gun violence. But this is a little different, and
Yeah.
once you start researching and you see, then you're able to offer something, offer
Hmm.
some type of assistance or help towards this. I know a lot of people say that I've met on this journey will say, "Oh, that's not going to work, or that's not going to help." And I always say, "Well, join us and tell us what can,
Right.
because if
Right.
you can say this is not going to work, then
Hmm.
tell us what will."
Right.
Because I think we're all open to different ideas and being bridges, for our community, to be able to speak up and advocate and pass common sense gun laws. I think we're
Hmm.
all in agreement with that.
Yes. 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 So I know you had touched on this before about what it is to be a survivor for you, but explain that entail so that because a lot of people don't even realize that, a lot of times when we are in our meetings or they don't even, it clicks later on that, oh, I am a survivor too. So explain that for us.
I think that for the most part, it's all within, um, because you have to get to the point where or see if you identify as one.
Hmm.
Um, there are identifying factors that go into that, but like I said, unless you're able to open that,
Hmm.
because a lot of time we suppress, we
Hmm.
suppress our feelings and our
Right.
emotions, and we just act like, okay, if I just say, okay, it didn't happen, it didn't happen.
Hmm.
And so until you're able to and you're ready,
Hmm.
that's going to be the main part of this is when you're ready.
Hmm.
Sometimes you have to look in the mirror. You have to speak to your soul. You can't speak to the image that you see in the mirror. You have to speak to your soul.
Yeah.
And when you speak to your soul, you can ask, like, okay, am I hiding something
Hmm.
that or trying to conceal something that I know is my reality, but I don't want to give it any thought.
Right.
And when you do that, you're able to see, like, okay, I am a gun violence survivor. And even if, and I know a lot of, here's the part that I think a lot of people get kind of like, don't like to identify as, even injured lives.
Hmm.
Anytime you've been threatened with a gun,
Hmm.
of any magnitude,
Right.
if it's your child or you personally, if you've been a victim of a robbery and they put a gun in you are a gun violence survivor. That
Hmm.
does not mean that you actually was shot or anything like
Hmm.
that, but
Hmm.
the fact that the gun was done, you're a gun violence survivor. A gun
Yeah.
was used, you're a
Yeah.
gun violence survivor.
Yeah.
Um, even injured lives. You know, you're a gun violence survivor. You know, someone may have been injured by a gun, you know,
Mhm.
where a stray bullet or anything like that. You're a
Mhm.
gun violence survivor, but it's all about identifying factors. But it's up to you
Mhm.
when you're ready to identify that.
Yeah. And I asked that question because I had a friend, him and I was talking, and he knew I was a part of an organization that did some work with bullets, and he was always supporting me with helping me get the bullets and all of that stuff. And him and I had had so many conversations about him losing his father. Um, but he still didn't realize or recognize that he was a survivor, that his father had died by gun violence. But it was so long ago. He's like in his 50s, and in that he, like you're saying, he suppressed that, and he lost his father when he was very young. He didn't identify with him being affected, but he knew he was affected by it, by growing up without a father, but he didn't make the connection. To him and I had a conversation because I had invited him to be on a panel that I was going to be on. And he says, Maya, he called me. He says, Maya, I didn't even realize that I'm a gun violence survivor. As much as you and I have been talking about it, me living my life, having the story about my dad, I just still never knew that I was a survivor from it because he wasn't the one that passed. So I guess that's
Hmm.
why he was saying that I just didn't recognize that I am also a survivor. And I said, yeah, but that's why I wanted you to touch on that, because a lot of people just don't know where they stand. They know that their lives have been affected, but they don't realize that I have too have had to live my life in this, and that I have been affected by it. So I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I wanted to talk about the remarkable woman, and how did you get to that, and what was that experience like? Tell us about the contest that you were a part of.
Yeah, so in the local viewing area, they were with a lot of Next Star media coverage. What they did was over 100 submissions were actually placed for four women
Hmm.
in our city of Savannah.
Hmm.
And this contest was all over the U.S. And so out of the four women that um, select were selected as remarkable women, I was chosen to represent the city of Savannah for the Next Star Remarkable Woman of the Year.
Hmm.
This was supposed to take place in March of this year in New York, but unfortunately, because of the coronavirus that's going on now, they actually had to push it back. It was supposed to air on March the 26th, where they would have announced the Remarkable Woman of the Year out of 120 women across the U.S.
Hmm.
Um, I am in the top six of the finalists
All right.
for the Remarkable Woman of the Year, and I will find out if I'm selected. I think they're pushing it back to May, sometime in May,
Hmm.
to actually announce the actual winner.
Hmm.
And what that entails was they selected women based off of work they were doing in the community and saving lives. And so we had four women, including myself. One was a cancer survivor who was giving out free haircuts for other women that were um, diagnosed with cancer as well.
Hmm.
Once they started the chemotherapy, and so she wanted to make them know that you're not alone, and so she
Yeah.
started that. There was
Beautiful.
another woman who was remarkable in her efforts with the homeless community,
Hmm.
being able to feed them and reach out to the homeless community, providing tents and things of that nature. And then there was another woman who did her community outreach for the children.
Hmm.
She did blessings in a book bag, is what she called it, what she
Hmm.
calls it, and they pack lunches or food for the kids that go home on the weekends and may not have access to food on the
Yeah.
weekend, and so she makes sure they have blessings in there book bags to be able to eat when they're not in school, which is also, and all of us are remarkable in our own sense
Yeah.
for our community outreach and pouring into our community and our engagement within our communities.
All right. Well, tell us about what you were doing. I know what you were doing, but share with us what your side of the story was.
My side of the story is the advocacy work,
Yeah.
for showing up to our state capitol, being able
Yes.
to advocate for common sense gun laws. We do that every year in February. And it's very imperative when we keep growing every year.
Mhm.
which, we don't like that our survivor network is growing, but it's more people that are identifying as survivors also.
Yeah.
And we just want to let them know that they're not alone, that they have a community with them. And we share, we
Mhm.
pray, we share, and things of that nature. What's working in your community, what can I do in my community? And so we kind of brainstorm and bounce off of that. In addition to that, we have our local new member meetup, which I'm a surviving engagement lead or a membership lead. And me and that title kind of like, it's like, we got all these survivors coming, and it's just like, wow. Um, it's it's overwhelming at
Mhm.
times when
Mhm.
you see another survivor that joins, but yet that you have another sister or brother that you can help and minister to, and y'all can minister to one another.
Yeah.
And so the connection is, we're connected by our grief and our experience, but we're joined and bonded by love,
Yeah.
and that's what we try to do and try to implement,
Mhm.
within the organization. Also, we another part of that is showing up for different organizations that are outside of Moms Demand Action in every
Mhm.
town.
Mhm.
Being able to reach out to different communities within our community,
Yeah.
especially when you have these marches and everyone coming together to fight for a common cause, and
Yeah.
that's to save lives. And
Mhm.
so that's what the Remarkable Woman entailed. Me sharing my story about be smart,
Yeah.
making sure that I advocate for that, and making sure that I show up and be present.
I'm just like in awe because it sounds like it's all of this and it is all of this, but it's just like you do so much. And I think sometimes when we get to talk about what we really do, and until we hear ourselves back, like, yeah, I do that and I do that and I do this and I do all these amazing things, but yet, we don't even look at it like that. We're just doing because,
Hmm.
for the cause, because we just love to support, and you are a major motivator in our movement, always instilling in us joy, and you're a great poet writer, just giving us so much insight on how we can be better, and improve ourselves. So in saying that, I want to talk about self-care because I notice a lot of times that you write or you talk to us about something, and when you're giving your guidance to share to us, you're definitely telling us to take care of ourselves. So what is something that you can share with our audience about self-care?
Self-care on any journey is needed. Whether it's your normalcy that's been affected, whether you're a gun violence survivor or any type of survivor, self care is imperative.
Yeah.
Making sure you take the time that you need for yourself.
Hmm.
Being able to take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, then how are you going to be able to take care of others? You
Hmm.
know, and so being able to soul breathe. I know we call it box breathing, but
Hmm.
I call it soul breathing, where you are taking that deep breath from within and you're just exhaling it all and just releasing it. I also do a lot of journaling. I
Hmm.
do a lot of meditating, but I do a lot of journaling. Um,
Yeah.
Writing has helped me on this journey, where I put all my feelings and my emotions into writing,
Yeah.
to be able to write on this journey and tell what I've experienced, what I felt, not saying that anyone else is going to feel this, but at least, putting or painting a picture
Hmm.
about what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Um, and so I do a lot of that. I do a lot of meditating and praying. And it's all needed on this journey. It's all required. It's all needed. Being able to um, also exercising,
Hmm.
that's a part of self-care too, or just relaxing. I call it there's two big C's that I like to talk about, and that's calming and coping.
Hmm.
Being able to calm yourself when you feel and you're aware of those grief things that come on, when you're aware of them, you have to find a way to calm yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes that requires that soul breathing in two different entities, but yet they work together.
Mm.
Um, and coping, being able to cope with what has happened. It's not a easy thing to say, okay, I'm coping, by doing this, but
Yeah.
finding positive ways to cope,
Yeah.
because we can all cope negatively, but finding positive ways to cope. And sometimes that's talking,
Yeah.
finding you a couple of people that can relate to what you're going through and having those conversations.
Mhm.
Like we just had our sister talk. We did lunch over the
Yeah.
Zoom, and it was good because it helps when you may be having one of those days and you may not realize that your sister may be having a similar day, but she did XYZ to get through it, and you just
Yeah.
like, man, I'm still stuck. But then that person can whisper something to you, and it's an awakening. And you like, okay, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna see
Yeah.
if that helps. And that's what this building this community is about, being
Mhm.
able to talk and having those meaningful conversations, but also those difficult conversations. And so
Absolutely.
it does help and it's beneficial. I see you got your candles, so burning candles, that's self-care too.
Oh,
That is
yes, I love
self-care
them.
within
Yes,
itself.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
It gives you an energy, it gives you a light, and it lets you see that, there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is
absolutely.
something to look forward to.
Yeah,
And so that's a part of self-care as well.
absolutely. For me, it's a calming, um, spirit, and for me, it's very calming, and like you said, since it, reflects light within
Hmm.
itself, it brings, I love to meditate. I meditate in the
Hmm.
morning, I meditate at night, but I love to do it mainly at night when it's, dark. And I light all my candles, and I just have this whole ritual that I do when I meditate. But I mean, a lot of people, they may not go all into that, but I actually want to set the atmosphere to be at peace. Because
Hmm.
a lot of times, with self-care, we can have these lists of things to do, but you have to intentionally put yourself in the space to be able to do that for yourself, to care for yourself. I mean, because we do so much to help everybody else. And like you had mentioned, us being on the call the other day with our other sisters, um, sometimes, like you said, with that connectivity, we need to talk because we have to be reminded that somebody else is going through this. We're not just,
Hmm.
it's not that we're selfish in our own thinking, because we definitely, losing a child, that is just so devastating. You can just become so consumed with your own thoughts. So sometimes with reaching out and connecting to my sister, I'm able to say, okay, I have to step outside of myself and be of service to somebody else because she too has lost. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
um, it, it's good, like you said, to definitely have that self care and have sisterhood time.
Hmm.
Definitely. So thank you for that. Um, we've talked so much about how you definitely share yourself and give so much of yourself to others. Is there anything that anybody can do to help support you in your efforts?
I think that, join an organization that's doing the work.
Yeah.
Making sure you're being smart. You can go to besmartforkids.org. Um, it has a ton of information, including the anthem that I'm a part of also.
Yeah.
So making sure you're doing your part. That's how you can help us on this journey, is doing your part. Um, Being able to show up with us. If you see, we're holding a rally, or are we doing, support us,
Yeah.
support us in any effort that you can. Even now we're, everyone's so, we're sheltering in place right now. And so it's probably kind of difficult for us to kind of look beyond the walls right now and say, okay, well, what can I do? Well, you can reach out on social media. Social media is a platform also.
Yeah.
Share the Be Smart message on social media outlets.
Right.
Share common sense gun laws, passing background checks. We all know that they've been, right now, with the shelter in place, there've been an increase in domestic violence. And
Hmm.
so part of domestic violence sometimes ends in gun violence. And so share about that,
Yeah.
making sure that we are checking on one another also. That helps also. Just
Mhm.
showing love right about now.
Yeah.
And that's what I heard this old song, with the love, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. And it kind of, touched my soul, because it's just like, we really do need that right now. We need
Yeah.
prayers, we need thoughts, we need all of it right about now. And so, using your social media platform to better the cause,
Yeah.
not add to the hysteria and all of
Oh,
that, but
right.
better the cause right about now. Someone that's reading needs a smile, or just,
Mhm.
just a virtual hug right now. Being able to express that right now helps me on this journey. It really
Yes,
does.
yes.
When
Thank
I
you
can look
so
on there
much.
and just smile. So yes.
Thank you so much for saying that. Yes, yes. So, how can my Grief Nation listeners reach out to you? Give your social media platforms if you could.
Okay, so I am on Facebook by my name. It's Julvonnia Young McDowell. I am on Instagram and Twitter. It's forever JaJuan underscore JAI. And that's on both Instagram and Twitter as well. So reach out and go join besmartforkids.org, and find out ways that you can help the organization, and find out ways that you can ask also, because there's a lot of information that's out there. We just have to reach for it and research it. And so make sure you join it. If you want to join Moms Demand Action, there's Moms Demand Action, also. But there's other organizations, Jared's Heart for Success,
Yes.
that's in the Atlanta area, including Miami Nights organization, her podcast. So join. She's a grief
Yes.
counselor. So it's a lot that we can actually join with, to better this fight that we're in right about
Thank you so much. And because you are amazing with your words, leave us with something that you've written, or a quote, or something that you can share with us.
now. Oh, now that you asked me that, now I have to look into my thing, because I'm like, okay, you didn't prepare me for this, because I would have had this already printed out. But let me see it. I'll make sure. I hope I don't freeze before I go to this. Hold on one second.
Oh,
I
you're
will share
fine.
with you. Okay.
You froze.
Am I froze?
Uh-huh. There you go. Okay. Well, I can hear you though.
Okay. Okay, I wrote these words as a part of my healing. We're healing through our grief. I will continue to pray for you, and please continue to pray for me. We are still healing through our shock and disbelief, but please do not say, well, at least. Never put conditions on a survivor's grief. We have experienced a loss so breathtaking and so mind entangling. Please don't say that they're in a better place. While we may know this, but in that moment, our minds are adjusting to a loss so difficult to comprehend, and a loss that causes pain to every fiber of our existence. Often we may sit in silence just to gather our thoughts, but because words can often escape our mouths, while pain pierces our hearts. Our children and loved ones' lives were tragically taken by senseless gun violence. So please do not ask, are you still? Never put a timetable on a grieving family trying to heal. Our lives have our lives have truly changed, and we will never be the same. Please do not ask, are you okay? Just simply ask, how are you doing and how is your day? Let us explain it in our own way. We're still trying to figure some things out ourselves. Please do not say time heals. Time doesn't heal all wounds, because you don't know how it feels to adjust to an empty room, or how we set our tables with one last seat. We see and hear things differently. Our sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, and loved ones' lives were taken prematurely. While we navigate through this difficult season, please do not say, call me if you need me. What if we call and you are always busy? Truly, what does that mean? Would you like for me to call you after the first or the second night that I can't sleep? Would you like for me to call you when I try to get up and I can't feel my feet because I'm too weak? Would you like for me to call you when I just want to scream? You see, during our grief, often we just want to hear, whether far or near, just simply, I'm here. It truly touches our heart to know that we are not alone, even in those days that we can't utter any words over the phone. As we search for our peace and some solace, weeping may endure for night, but joy comes in the morning. As we stand on a promise, we just need to hear, I'm praying for you, I love you, or a loving hug, or simply, I'm thinking of you will do. We're healing through our grief. I will continue to pray for you, and please continue to pray for me.
Oh, that is so beautiful, Giovanna. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. And before I let you go, is there anything else that has your attention in the advocacy world, or just being a business leader or community advocate, that you would like to see change or bring further awareness to?
Yes. So right now, I would like to bring, the awareness, of course, the gun violence, but domestic violence also. Um, and the fact that, we want you to understand that if you identify as a gun violence survivor, reach out. Um, Reach out to anyone that you know that may be doing the work that can
Mhm.
kind of guide you and help you and assist you on this journey. We all know that you may feel like you don't have a voice in this, but you do. You do.
Yeah,
And when you find your voice, you'll be able to speak. You don't have to rush it.
yeah,
It's unfortunate that this work will not go anywhere anytime soon. That's the unfortunate reality of it. But we want to provide the resources and the help that you need. Grief counseling does work.
hmm,
Don't think that you're alone.
yeah,
Like I said, reach out to someone. That someone can't just be anyone, but reach out to someone who can help you,
yeah.
who can actually lead you on the right path and help you on this journey. It doesn't get easier, but our prayer is that you'll be able to manage it. And we're here,
Yes, absolutely.
one
Because
heart.
no one
Yes,
has to struggle in silence.
correct.
There's enough of us here that are along this journey that are willing to support you. But a lot of times people don't think that they don't have anyone because they don't reach out themselves. But we
Mhm.
have to be okay with saying, I'm not okay. Can you support me?
Can you support?
So,
Yes.
but thank you so much, Giovanni, for coming on It's the Miami Night Show Grief Talk, sharing your story. It's always a pleasure to be in company with you and to hold space with you. Thank you once again for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.